Hello there. Now this is an unusual view. I'm currently standing on top of a steamship that is sitting in a fortress on a hill. The sea's over there. Yeah, I'm on vacation in Split, Croatia, my birth town, and I thought I'll use the opportunity to show you something special. Now the fortress that I'm in is Gripe Fortress, and it is an old artillery fortress that basically covered the approach to the town and the harbor with its guns. And housed within the fortress today is the Croatian Maritime Museum. They have one of the most valuable collections of torpedoes in the world, because what many of you don't know is that the torpedo as a weapon was invented in Croatia, in Rijeka, and the Whitehead torpedo factory had donated all of their private museum to the Maritime Museum here in Split when it closed down in the 60s. So they have a very valuable collection of the first torpedoes that were ever produced. And we are going to have a look at that. But before we go inside, I want to show you a few other things. They have a very nice collection of anti-submarine weapons here. Down there you can see a hedgehog launcher. I do dread the day when we will encounter those things in our Silent Hunter 3 campaign. Next to it is the successor to the hedgehog launcher, Mousetrap, although it wasn't as successful as the hedgehog launcher has been. So that's pretty cool. To go with that, there are a lot of things that you can see here. Torpedoes, of course, and also a nice collection of naval guns. All of that can be seen in the outside area, but the barracks and the arsenal, they're housing the real collection. They have a very rich collection of old maritime things, antique findings, and then of course things from the World War I, World War II, pre-World War I, and, well, torpedoes. So, let's go inside and have a look. Let's learn a little bit about the torpedo's history. It all started with this man here, Giovanni Lupus. He was a captain in the Austro-Hungarian Navy, and after his active service time he, decided to invent something that would help to protect the coastline from the Italian expansionism. And this is what he envisioned at first. It was basically supposed to be a small boat with sails, steered by ropes, remotely, so to say, and it would be steered towards an enemy ship and then detonated. Well, then along came this man here. This is Robert Whitehead, a successful English engineer. He came to the town of Rijeka then, worked in a metal factory, and picked up the idea of Lupus and decided to improve upon it. So this is where the torpedo originates from. And here we have one of the very first examples of a torpedo. You will note that this torpedo has a pointed head, not a rounded one. Only later it was discovered that the rounded head actually allows the torpedo to go faster underwater than a pointed head does. And it also allows the torpedo to carry more explosives. But this is how the torpedoes looked initially. Pretty nice example of it. Of course, with the proliferation of torpedoes, countermeasures were developed. For example, torpedo nets. And here we have a very interesting torpedo head. Because, of course, to the countermeasures, they invented countermeasures. And this torpedo head here, I hope you can see that, actually has a serrated edge here that was supposed to cut through the torpedo net to allow the torpedo to impact on the ship. Furthermore, we can here see the tail sections of multiple very old torpedo designs. These are all, I think, basically from 1800 something. Yeah, 1886, 88, so pretty old torpedoes. Same here, but here we can see something else that's interesting. This here is a torpedo engine, a 3-cylinder torpedo engine. I bet most of you have never seen something like that. This is the shaft that ran to the propeller, and this here is the engine. And on this torpedo we can actually see an engine mounted inside its housing. Very interesting. Here we can see a prototype that was built, because propulsion, well, they experimented with that too. You can see here that they added a second screw to propel the torpedo forwards. Only later on did they start to mount the screws like this, counter-rotating. And here on this torpedo, you can see the control mechanism with gears and levers and the control rod here. This was to control the direction that the torpedo was going in, to control the rudders. Very nice. Here we have one of the most important elements of the torpedo. This here is the depth keeping device, a very well guarded secret at the time. Then here next to it we have a detonator, and another one, and another one. These are all detonators. But this here, this is the really complicated thing. The secret to the success of the Whitehead Torpedo Factory. A very well guarded secret. Only a few selected workers were allowed to work on these things and to assemble them. Well, what do we have? The next big part of a torpedo success. These are gyroscopes. It is their job to keep the torpedo on a straight path. Without them, the torpedo will just go off course. Very interesting examples. And then here we have, what is that? An air heater with a piston. So this was meant to regulate the engine speed. This is for testing purposes. This is basically a depth indicator. It records the depth of the test fire torpedo. This here, a circular aiming device, and a recovery system for the torpedo. This big red thing here is a rescue buoy from a submarine. But let's go back to the torpedoes. Now some of you will recognize this. This is a torpedo firing solution calculator, a very old one. A slightly more modern one, and next to it we have a handbook for the usage of torpedoes in the Austro-Hungarian Navy. This, a depth indicator, I believe from an Italian submarine. Really nice. Also from an Italian submarine that was sunk is this lid of a torpedo tube. Well, a model of a post-World War II submarine that was built in Yugoslavia, and a model of a mini-sub that was used during World War II. Pretty nice things to see here in the museum. Let me show you this now. This thing is big. This is a big TR-45B torpedo from 1948, next to a Higgins launch tube and next to a big torpedo engine. Have a look at this thing. I don't know if you have ever thought about torpedo engines and that, well, each torpedo must have an engine and that's how they look. But this thing is huge. You can't really grasp how big torpedoes are until you stand next to one. It is 4 meters 54 long with a diameter of 45 centimeters. And here we have a schematic showing the important parts in the torpedo. The gyroscope, the engine, depth keeping device, the petroleum tanks for the propulsion, a fresh water tank, an air tank to regulate the depth, and also as a means of propulsion. Then we have the detonator, and in this case, in this schematic we don't have a warhead, we have a test head. So this would have a surfacing mechanism so that the test torpedo can be recovered. This red thing is actually a test head for a torpedo. Once the test firing has been completed, it would deploy, basically it would blow up a big balloon so that it would flow to the surface. What are these? Some implements to work on torpedoes. Yeah, nice collection. And here, a look into the torpedo tube. I can't really see anything, it's really dark in there. Okay, but yeah, very interesting little collection in this museum. Very historical collection. You won't find something like this anywhere else in the world, maybe apart from Rijeka itself, where the factory was. I think they have another museum there. But unless you're in Croatia, well, you won't see these things. Very interesting. And this museum in itself is pretty interesting, I can tell you that much. They have so many interesting examples of weapon technology used in the maritime theater. This room here, that I'm having a brief look at, is dedicated to the Croatian War of Independence, but there are also rooms dedicated to World War I, World War II, pre-World War I, etc. Also to merchant marine themes. So very, very interesting. If you find yourself ever in Split, do visit this museum. It's very interesting. All right, with that, let's end it here. Thank you very much for watching. And I do hope to see you again soon. Until then, have some great days and goodbye. We are back outside. I can't pass up the opportunity to give you a better look at the Hedgehog launcher. So that's where we are going right now. It's up here, together with some examples of very old boat designs. There it is. Very interesting. The depth charges would be placed on these pistons and then fired, basically all at the same time in a circular pattern. Pretty rare to see something like this. Hedgehog and mousetrap. And that's the mousetrap. A simpler design intended to be used also on smaller boats than the Hedgehog launcher, but not as successful. While we are here, let's get you a better view of this torpedo. Pretty nice. Another one. And we'll take a quick look at the naval gun collection and the sea mines that they have up there. Those are interesting as well. Ah, the steamship. I was standing up there. And here we have the gun collection. Mostly anti-aircraft guns on naval mounts. These are two barrels of a Bofors gun that was taken from a ship that was sunk in 1941. Original guns from the fortress. A Breda 37mm naval gun. Oh, a peacock. Or as I like to call them, fancy chicken. Nice. Yeah, more guns. And naval mines. So for those of you who don't know how big these things are, naval mines are pretty big. Look at this thing. This here, I think, is a range-finding device from a warship. Or I don't know what this is, maybe a snorkel or something like that? Not sure. But yeah, if you do find yourself in Split. At any point in your life, go and visit the Croatian Maritime Museum in the Gripe Fortress. It is pretty amazing. And cheap as well. I think I paid €3.50 entrance fee for the museum, so that's nothing. Alright, with that, now we'll really end the video with footage of the very fancy chicken here. And I hope to see you again soon. Until then, have some great days and goodbye.